Welcome back. With the Notes app looking good, we're going to move on to our final application, the To-Do app. Step 1, let's go ahead and actually run that application from the terminal. I'm going to use Control-C to shut down live server, then live server with the To-Do app directory to start that up. And once it is up, we should be able to refresh the browser in the background to actually see things. There actually is no edit HTML page for that app, so let's get rid of the URL path, and there we go. We have our bare bones basic to-do application. Now, once again, there are a couple things I want to do before we really get started making any code changes. The first thing we're going to do is adjust the UUID package again, like we did in the last video. So over inside of Visual Studio Code, I'm going to close all open files and collapse all expanded directories, and we're going to move into To-Do app and create some folders. We're going to create one folder for our styles, and we're going to create another folder for our scripts. Inside of scripts, we're going to have the two scripts we currently have. We have To-Do app, which I'll move in there, and we also have To-Do function, which we can move in there as well. And lastly, we're going to be creating a new one, UUID v4.js. Now, if you remember, I showed you where you can find that short link a couple of videos ago. This is the full URL. The short link URL was links.mead.io/UUID-v4. If you head to that, it's going to bring you over to the correct file where you can just grab a local version of that library so you don't have to depend on the inconsistent website. I'm going to grab all of the code in this one, copy it to the clipboard, and paste it over here. Now, all we really need to do is save the file and adjust our script tags. In index.html, we need to tweak the two down below, adding /scripts/ before them. I'm going to do that here. Then I'll copy the new code and add it up above for To-Do functions. And then we're going to replace this entire URL with the local path. I'll paste in /scripts/, then it's just UUID-v4.js. Awesome. So at this point, we are now back to a working version of our application, and we're going to go ahead and grab the theme code. You can find the theme for this one by going to the browser and heading over to links.mead.io/to-do. That's going to redirect you to the appropriate page where you can grab all of the CSS. I'm going to view the raw CSS file and then just use Command A, Control A on other operating systems to highlight everything. We can copy it to the clipboard easily and then switch over to the editor and actually add this in. Inside of the styles directory, let's make a brand new file, styles.css, and all we're going to do is paste that code in. Now let's go into index.html and actually change the head tag to load that styles file in. Well, we're here, we can knock out the other things we've been doing in the head tag as well. I'll start with title. Right here, we can pick a title for this one. We can call this To-Do app, for example. Then on the next line, I can use link to link in a couple of different things. The first thing we're going to link in is that style sheet. So we have href and we have rel. The relationship is a style sheet, and the actual href is /styles/styles.css. That's just the path to the file we created. Now that we have this in place, let's go ahead and also grab the favorite icon that we have set up for this one. Once again, you can grab that icon as part of the lecture zip for this one. So if I switch over to the Finder, I have the lecture zip right here. In there, I have the To-Do app directory with an images folder that has our icon in there. If we just copy the images folder, you can move over to where you actually have your JS Bootcamp directory, and you can paste it right in the To-Do application. Now we can actually link that in since it is showing up right here. A new link. The href is the path to that image, /images/favicon.png. Then we set up the relationship for this one, the relationship just being an icon. Now if we go ahead and save index.html, we should see those changes applied. Right here in the browser tab, I am indeed seeing those. Now you'll notice that the icon is still the icon from the old application, even though the new one is clearly purple. This is just due to a bit of caching that's taking place in the browser. After a little while, or by switching to private mode, you will see that the correct icon is actually the one you were hoping for. You can always cache bust that icon by adding something dynamic onto the URL, like a query string, which isn't going to affect how the image is loaded, but it is going to make it a unique URL, so the cached version won't be used. Right here, question mark, v equals 1, for example, it's still going to load the image just fine, but because it's a different URL, it's not going to use the cached version, and up above, we can see we're now getting purple. So this is a handy technique for when you're doing local development and you just want to make sure things are actually working, even though you have some stuff cached. Now, if we go ahead and move to the browser, we can see that this time around, we are getting a nice dark background with white text once again, but it looks horrible. So we're going to move through that process again of actually making the necessary changes. And for this one, I do want to start inside of index.html, and then eventually, most likely in the next video, we will be making some pretty significant changes to the to-do scripts as well to make the application easier to work with. The first thing we're going to do is set up the header area, much like we did for the Notes application. .header, the div with the class of header is our root container. We also have .container for a div with the class of container. Then in here, we have our h1 with a class of header __ title. And in here, we can put whatever title we want to use. I can just stick with to do app. And we can also add a subtitle down below, an h2 with the class of header __ subtitle. And for this one, we could pick a subtitle along the lines of what do you need to do? Perfect. Now that we have the header code in place, we can remove the old h1 we had down below, save the index.html file, and see what we get. This time we are going with a dark UI, so we have a nice black background down below, and we have a nice purple header up above with our styled text inside. From here, we're going to move on to the Actions panel, which for this application is just going to contain our filters, our search filter and the hide completed filter. We have both of those sitting right here. So once again, we're going to end up just creating a couple of divs, moving these things inside, and then adding some classes. Right here, we can knock that out. We're going to make a div with the class of actions. Then inside of there, a div with the class of actions __ container. Once we have this in place, we can actually go ahead and move the inputs in. So these classes and structures are very similar to what we saw with the Notes application, because in both cases, these parts of the UI do want to look pretty similar. Now, right here, we have our inputs sitting inside of the actions container. We can go ahead and save things and see if this gets us in the right direction. Clearly, we are seeing some styles applied, but things aren't looking perfect. We got some weird spacing issues. We're going to fix all of that by adding some classes on to the input and down below. First up with the input. Right here, I'm going to add a brand new class. And I said right here, but the order you put your various attributes in has no effect on them, so it technically could have gone anywhere. I'm going to call this one input, like we've seen before. Then down below, we're going to add a class to the label, not to the actual input. So up here, the class that we're going to add for this one is checkbox. Now, if we go ahead and save our HTML file, what do we get over in the browser? We get a much nicer set of styles for our inputs. We got some spacing right here. We've made this a little bigger, and we've customized the font weight, and the font size. So now everything from the actions bar up looks good, and what we really want to focus on is all of that stuff down below. Down below, we have our list of to-dos, and we have the form for creating new to-dos. Down below, let's go ahead and set up the div for this one. We're going to be creating a div with the class of container. This is going to correctly center things. What are we trying to center? Our list of to-dos and the form down below. Now, for the list of to-dos, all of this is actually generated by JavaScript. We are going to be adding some classes into the mix over there, but all of that will happen when we actually change the JavaScript files. For now, we're just focused on the changes to the HTML file. And one of the last things we're going to do is add a class to input and to button. So for input, we're going to add the class of input, And for button, we're going to add the class of button. Class equals right here, button. If I go ahead and save things, we can move into the browser and we can see that we are getting our styled button and our styled input. Now, clearly we're not done yet. And the reason that things still look terrible, even though we've finished all of our HTML changes, is because, as I mentioned before, we don't have all of the classes set up in the JavaScript files. So if I do add new items in, this is a new item, for example, it looks just terrible. It's not styled. We'll get there when we actually add those JavaScript classes. So that's where we're going to stop for this one. In the next video, we're going to be turning our attention exclusively towards the JavaScript side of things, and there are going to be a few challenges for you to knock out using what you've learned so far in the course. I'm excited to get to that, so let's go ahead and jump right in.